Gojo Satoru is the strongest sorcerer alive, a man whose name alone sends cursed spirits into retreat. His blindfolded gaze is symbolic of power and mystery, but behind the swagger, the battles, and the radiant blue glow lies a deeper truth. Gojo Satoru might also be the loneliest man in anime. Let's step beyond the fighting and dive into who Gojo really is. Because strength without connection is just silence. Section 1. Origin and burden born into the prestigious Gojo clan. Expectations followed him from the moment he opened his 6 eyes. Gojo wasn't simply gifted, he was engineered by lineage and cursed by power. His childhood wasn't filled with laughter or bonding. It was defined by training, isolation, and projections of greatness. The clan didn't raise Satoru as a child, they sculpted him into a weapon, one meant to represent their pride and power, regardless of what it did to his humanity, even as a teenager. Gojo stood out, not just in strength, but in attitude. There was a cockiness that felt earned, a confidence born from knowing no one else could touch him. But that very confidence built a barrier, relationships, intimacy, vulnerability. They all took a backseat to his status. 6 eyes and limitless. The combination that defined his power and his alienation. For Gojo, the world became a calculation. Distances, energies, fields of influence. In this mathematical landscape, emotional messiness was inconvenient, but cracks began to show. Not in his strength, that remained unchallenged, but in his humanity. Because being strong enough to save the world often means being forced to watch it break. Section 2. Friendship and downfall of Geto. There was one person who pierced Gojo's cold orbit. Sugar Geto, a sorcerer of equal potential, a student with idealism and edge. And for a time, a best friend. Their banter, their battles, their philosophies. They clashed and danced like fire and wind. Where Gojo exuded arrogance, Geto brought reason. Where Gojo dismissed rules, Geto contemplated them. Together, they represented balance. But balance is fragile. The mission that broke everything, Riko Amani's protection, became their turning point. Gojo failed to protect Riko. He failed to see the cost of his detachment. And Geto, he saw the cruelty, the waste, the hypocrisy of Jujutsu society. That moment hardened them both, but in opposite directions. Gojo became colder, more focused on systemic change. Geto fell into despair, rebellion. When Geto slaughtered innocent civilians and declared war on non-sorcerers, Gojo was called to deal with it, to confront the man who once stood beside him. And that scene, where they face each other, not as friends but as adversaries, is one of the most painful in Jujutsu Kaisen. Gojo didn't cry, but everything about him changed. His friend, his only equal, was gone in that absence. Gojo's smile sharpened, his jokes became deflections. He surrounded himself with students, but never truly with peers. Section 3. Philosophy and the student generation. It's easy to see Gojo as just a fighter, but his greatest gift is his vision, not the 6 eyes, but his belief in the future. He trains Yuji, Megumi, Nobara, and more not out of obligation, but out of hope. Gojo wants to create a generation strong enough to topple the corrupt system that destroyed his friendship, his youth, and perhaps his soul. He defies elders, insults traditions, challenges hierarchies, because for Gojo, strength must serve justice, not tradition. He sees the potential in Yuji's compassion, Megumi's focus, Nobara's fire. He believes they can rebuild the world he couldn't fix, that they can love, grieve, fight, without becoming bitter. Gojo stands behind them in every battle, not just physically, but philosophically. He protects them because they represent change. But mentorship isn't companionship. And every time Gojo smiles at his students, there's loneliness tucked behind it. He's the mentor, the shield, the sword, but not the peer, not the friend. Section 4. Fight sequences and symbolic strength. Gojo's fights are visual masterpieces. The domain expansion, Infinite Void, is surreal. His technique bends space, slows time, and annihilates enemies with precision and beauty. Against Jogo, against Hanami, against the curses, Gojo doesn't sweat. He doesn't panic. He simply analyzes and erases, but even his victories carry weight. He wins because he must, because if Gojo loses, everything falls. He doesn't fight to prove he's the best. He fights to ensure others don't die like Riko did, like Geto did, like countless nameless sorcerers did before. Gojo's power isn't just in his fist or fields, it's in his restraint. He could dominate, destroy, oppress, but he chooses to guide, protect, empower, and that choice, day after day, is exhausting. Because being good while being powerful is the hardest fight of all. Section 5. FALL. Imprisonment and return in Shibuya. Everything breaks. Gojo is tricked, sealed, and removed from the story for over 100 chapters. The strongest sorcerer is gone. And the world suffers for it. But more than just plot loss, Gojo's absence becomes symbolic. The students are forced to grow without his shield. The system creaks, enemies rise, and we feel, deeply, what his presence meant. His return isn't triumphant, it's tragic. He re-enters with a half-smile, a sharp remark, and the weight of Shibuya on his shoulders. And then comes Sukuna. The fight between Gojo and Sukuna is everything fans dreamed of and feared. It's flashy, brilliant, exhausting, painful, and it ends not in victory, but in death. Gojo dies, but not forgotten. Because in his final conversation, in the ethereal moment with Geto, we see peace, regret, yes, but also closure. Gojo, for once, doesn't fight, he accepts, and in that, he becomes human again. Section 6, Outrow and Legacy. Gojo Satoru is the strongest sorcerer. But strength is not just technique or lineage, strength is grief, isolation, hope, and choice. Gojo chose to protect a broken world. He chose to raise students even when he was falling apart. He chose to believe in possibility, in love, and change. So, when you remember Gojo, don't just replay the domain expansion, replay his silence, his loneliness, his smile, not for himself, but for those he tried to save. Drop your favorite Gojo moment in the comments. Subscribe for more character deep dives, emotional storytelling, and anime tributes that dig beneath the surface. This is Anime Lens, where we see beyond the fight.